Hello friends, welcome to Dr. Rajesh Verma's YouTube channel. In this video, I'll be talking with you the principles of counseling on which the whole process of counseling is based. The first one is the acceptance. Acceptance, the word has come out from the word accept. Accept means accepting the individual without any modification, change, or control in whatever form the client comes to the counselor. The counselor has to unconditionally accept the client. Charles Rogers, who suggested the client-centered therapy, said, by acceptance, I mean a warm regard for him as a person, no matter what his condition, his behavior, or his feelings. It means a respect and liking for him as a separate person, a willingness for him to possess his own feelings in his own way. Whatever his behavior, whatever his way of talking, his emotions or feelings, and that client has to be allowed to possess his own feelings, express his own emotions without any interference from the counselor. Of acceptance is foundation of rapport between counselor and counselee. Till the time counselor accepts the counselee unconditionally, it becomes almost impossible to form a rapport. And the rapport is the base on which whole process of this counseling stands. The acceptance of an individual in its totality and natural form is necessary for kickstart of effective counseling. Here, acceptance is the starting point of the counseling process. The moment the counselee is accepted in its totality and natural form, the counseling process begins. So, counselor has to be armed with a skill that is known as the skill of acceptance. And that has to be genuine one, where the counselee feels the genuineness of the counselor acceptance. So the respect for the individual. Each individual is unique in temperament and response to stimulus. Every individual has its own personality type and own style of responding to various stimuli. Considering this point, the counselor must pay unconditional respect to the client, irrespective of his psychological condition or any other thing. So, respect forms the base for the further counseling process. This principle suggests that each person is to be respected and valued as a person of worth. Every individual has some worth, and that is unique worth. That has to be respected, that has to be valued, and the client must experience this, that counselor is original and genuine in his approach as far as the respect is concerned. Respect satisfies the self. So once the counselor starts respecting the counselee, automatically the counselee's belief and faith in the counselor improves, because counselor is taking care of self-esteem of the client. And once the client experiences this point that my self-esteem is being looked after, certainly this individual is genuine in his approach, and that forms the basis of the counseling process. The emotional response and personality type of an individual must be given due regard without being judgmental. The counselor has to be non-judgmental. Whatever the emotions are expressed by the counselee in presence of the counselor, that has to be respected and accepted in originality. Because this acceptance and respect for the counselee's behavior, for the counselee's emotional expression, and counselee's personality type will pave the way for the counseling process. And certainly it helps in developing the counselee his own self-respect, self-esteem, and lead to the self-efficacy. And the third principle is the optimism. The word optimism has been derived from the word optimum, the best possible outcome. So, optimism has been defined as a positive anticipatory state, an inclination to put the most favorable construction upon actions and events or to anticipate the best possible outcome. Optimism means accepting the best, anticipating the best, and the optimism provides a kind of mental solace, mental relief, where individual feels satisfied and optimally utilize the cognitive resources for life challenges. It is described as a cognitive process. Obviously, the optimism and the positivism, they both are correlated. They focus on outcome expectancies determining goal-directed behavior. Once individual is practicing optimism, automatically the cognitive resources pool together and nudge the individual towards the goal-directed behavior. Those who are optimistic, they have better problem-solving ability. Research says that the optimistic individuals tend to have lesser psychological issues, that is distress, depression, anxiety. Optimism provides an option and a chance to the counselor where that individual is satisfied and expecting that the outcomes of this total counseling process will be better. Optimism helps the counselor in formatting the best outcome and ensuring that client gains the self-confidence. The principle of optimism suggests that both counselor as well as the counselee must be optimistic in their approach as far as the counseling process is concerned. They must be optimistic in their mutual relationship. They must be optimistic. The optimism from both the sides will add to the outcomes of the counseling process. It is a kind of synergy. The fourth principle is the learning. Learning is permanent modification of behavior by virtue of experience. And counseling is a face-to-face interactive process that occurs between two individuals. And the foundation of counseling rests upon the learning. Albert Einstein rightly said that you cannot solve your problems with the same thought process that created in the first instance. For that, we need to modify our thought process. And modification of thought process comes under the domain of the learning. So modification of thought process leads to the modification of behavior. Once the client's behavior is modified, certainly the problems will automatically recede. So how that client will modify the behavior? The client or the counselee will be helped by the counselor in modifying his behavior through the scientific techniques. Counselor is not going to impose or enforce the counselee to modify his behavior, but counselor will help the counselee in modification of that process. So what the modification will yield? It will help in adjustment and adaptation to the demands of the environment and overcome the immediate problems. So what are the demands of the environment? The immediate environment, the psychological environment, the social environment forces some demand on an individual, and then these demands are continuous one. To meet out these demands, to overcome these problems, the individual has to be proactive, and that proactiveness comes from the inside, from the psychological domain. And for that domain, the domain has to work in the right direction. For that reason, we need to modify our thought process subsequently or behaves. Learning has a very important role in counseling. It helps in circumventing the reoccurrences of the problem. Once an individual modify his behavior in accordance with the demands of the immediate environment, certainly the occurrence of the problems will be minimal. I am not saying that problems will go away in totality. No, problems and challenges are the integral part of life. Certainly they will come, but the individual will be efficient to deal with the problems and meeting out the challenges. Learning theories form the base of the counseling. Rationalization of thinking with a client. What is rationalization? Rationalization means removing your own emotional aspect from the decision making. The rationalization means reorganization. Thinking pattern has to be reorganized in a fashion incompatible with the client's thought process. In the counseling context, the counselor to be effective has to rationalize the thought process with that of a client. Whatever information is being revealed by the client, the counselor has to be non-judgmental, totally accepting, has to rationalize his own thought process with that of the counselee. This rationalization helps in developing the rapport as well as the faith of the counselee in the counselor. What is the central idea of that? The central idea behind rationalization is to obtain authentic, pure or original information from the client. So once the thought process of the client and the counselor is rationalized, harmonized, the client will start revealing the original and authentic information. Why it is so? Because the client feels that the individual who is sitting in front of him or the counselor is genuine in his approach, accepting my views and understands me in totality. This feeling in the client will help in making the counseling process as a big success. He or she must feel secure, that is client, in sharing problem related personal information with the counselor. Sometimes, or the initial process, or when there is no rationalization between the counselor and the counselee finds it difficult to share the deep thoughts, the thoughts or the events or the ideas which are deeply ingrained in the counselee's mind and where the counselee felt reluctant to share with anyone by virtue of a deficit of faith, trust, rationalization, acceptance, unconditional positive regard, and everything else. So, counselee must be treated in a such a way where he feels and experiences a kind of pure faith in the counselor, and that can be achieved with the rationalization of thinking of the counselor with that of the counselee. So, dear friends, here ends our today's discussion. So, these are my references. If you want deeper insight, you can go through them or you can contact me. So, our next lecture will be special areas of counseling. Dear friends, if you like this video, tell to others. But if you want to say something or if you dislike some part of it or totality, kindly let me know through my comment box or you can email me at wormasujit@yahoo.com. Thank you for watching this video.